Again, Jackie, we are live?
I'm thinking so.
Okay, all right. Well, we are live, and welcome to the Blended Podcast for the month of June, July. It is June 30th today, and I can't believe summer is flying by. And we are on to our second podcast, and this time we have a different panel with us this evening. And why don't we go around and just introduce ourselves and maybe say I don't know, where you go to school, what are you studying? Something beneficial to the audience, I guess.
Beneficial, okay. Okay, well, my name is Becca Lorenzen, and I go to the University of Florida, and I'm studying to become a physical therapist.
Okay, well, I'm Rochelle. I go to South University here in Tampa, and I am studying to be a nurse.
I'm David. I'm one of the youth leaders for the Hispanic Church, and I used to go to school though, but not anymore. I went to HEC for like 3 years, and I'm currently working. So yeah.
Go Hawks.
Awesome. And I'm Chris. I'm the youth director here for Passion Student Ministries at New Hope. We are going to be talking about relationships tonight. That is our topic of discussion, and we're going to get perspectives about relationships. We're going to kind of dive into friendships, and then we're going to dive into maybe some romantic relationships, and we'll just talk about relationships in general, because we have these relationships in our lives, and a lot of times when we start thinking about the relationships in our lives, we think about how complex they are, some of them. Some of them mean the world to us, and we don't know what we would do without them, but then some of them, they're just very complex. So I guess a good way to start this off tonight is to really describe maybe what you look for in a friend. I know that sounds really simple, but really when you think about it, and you guys are old enough to know, you've been through some friendships before, and some of them probably don't exist anymore. You know what you're looking for in that friend, right? So maybe describe what you like to see in a friend.
You want to go first?
You go first.
Okay.
Go down the line.
I think the main thing for me in a friend is just knowing that they're there. Because I think a lot of times with everything that the pandemic has shown us, being there and being with someone both physically and mentally can be a really big thing for somebody. And so I think when you know someone is there for you 100% and they're not going to disappear or leave you in the dust necessarily, then I think that's a really big thing for me, just knowing that I can count on them no matter what. Because a lot of stuff happens, so you have to be sure. So that's mine.
Yeah, I agree. So definitely someone you could always depend on, that's always there to like back you up and help you out through everything you need. There's also like that loyalty there, like, you know, just like if they're going through something and you're going through something, and like let's say you guys have like a difference of opinions or like you clash, like, you know, that person isn't gonna go behind your back and like try to betray you or anything. And just like that sense of like communication, that you guys are always there and like talking to each other, and that there's always someone there you could like vent out to, someone who could always like be there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think sometimes it's very easy to make friends with people that we have like a lot of things in common, TV shows, sports, stuff like that. But sometimes it's not easy to, you know, start a relationship with someone who doesn't share, you know, the same things. And that could be challenging, but I think at the end of the day, if a friend is someone, like you guys were saying, is someone that's going to be there in the good or bad moments. And sometimes we have so many friends that sometimes we don't know who's a real friend. And when you're going through the tough moments, then you realize who are the real friends. So yeah, I think the word friendship is complicated.
I think a big word I'm taking out of everybody's description is loyalty.
Yeah.
Loyalty is a huge part of friendship. Has loyalty ever been a problem with a friendship, and how did that turn out? What was it that kind of went sideways with that loyalty? Was it a mutual thing where you kind of both sort of were at fault, or was it one person over the other? What was it?
I mean, in my case, I think I've told you this story before, actually. I had one friend from childhood. Like, I had grown up with her literally from the moment we were babies to my entire life. And I thought I could count on her for anything and everything. And I did for a long time. But at one point, it just became this pattern that she would only come to me when she needed me. And then as soon as she got whatever she needed from me, she would just leave again. And that's just became like our routine. And for a long time, I thought that was okay. And then eventually, after talking to you, I'm pretty sure about it, I was like, this doesn't seem like how a friendship should be happening. And it wasn't really, the loyalty wasn't there. Like, I knew she was going to leave me. It was a pattern. And so, not that I'm putting all the blame on her, because I'm sure there was something I could have done, but it just, to me, it didn't feel right, like, as a friendship. And so the loyalty wasn't there, and eventually I just couldn't be in that friendship anymore. It wasn't right for me, and it definitely wasn't right for her, no matter what she didn't see. But eventually I just had to walk away from it. So
It wasn't a two-way street.
it wasn't a two-way street, no. But at the end of the day, I realized it, and I think if I hadn't realized it, I think it would have caused a lot more pain down the road, that like something bad could have happened there and I wouldn't have known. And I think that's more important, me walking away, than sticking with it and trying to get hurt later on.
I have a similar, and that's not similar, but I had this friend from, like, we met in, like, 7th grade, I think it was, all the way to, like, 9th grade. I started talking to this dude, which is, like, my best friend now. He's, like, my guy best friend, like, you know. But we only dated for, like, a week. We realized it was only, like, a friendship thing. It was too awkward. It wasn't great. But come to find out that my girl was kind of like, you know, flirting with him and da-da-da-da. So I ended up, that's how, like, we broke up, and, like, they ended up, like, dating after. And, like, for, like, a good year, I just kept my distance from them. I, like, you know, you were supposed to be my friend. Why did you start flirting with this guy that I was, like, dating? But after, like, a year or so, I had a class with him, and I started, like, you know, talking to him again, you know, because obviously, like, no hard feelings. I didn't really care, like, obviously it wasn't nothing serious. We realized we were only friends at the end. And then I started, you know, I forgave her. We went out. We talked about it. Good. But then it just got into, like, a mess again. And, like, she cheated on him. And then, like, oh, my gosh. And it's, like, obviously I had to take his side because, you know, you just cheated on him. Like, you know, I'm like, we're not that close anymore. You know, you backstabbed me. I'm not going to let you backstab him now. So it's kind of that. And then after that, it was just, like, never the same, because she just got jealous every single time he was, like, around me. And it's just, like, I thought, like, you know, I forgave you. We moved on. We talked about it. But it obviously still didn't, like, help her, you know. But, yeah. There's a lot of, like, examples with, like, loyalty, but...
You said something, too, that kind of, and I think in both the situations, I kind of hear this a little bit, that there was this envy going on with the other friend.
Yeah.
That doesn't work too well in relationships and friendships, does it?
No.
That's, like, another friend that I had.
She said, speaking of.
It was, like...
She has too many friends.
Okay. It was, like, junior... We met in sophomore year. I brought her into me and my best friend, my current best friend. We've been friends since, like, 6th grade. And, you know, I met this other girl. I brought her into the friend group. Like, all three of us were close. And then just, like, after high school... You know, obviously, we're all doing different things. Like, we're not 5 days a week seeing each other. We're all living our life, going to school, have, like, jobs and everything to worry about. So we kind of distanced, and we weren't, like, really hanging out or talking. And she would just, like, gaslight us or, like, manipulate us if me and my best friend, like, we've been best friends for 6 years, if we decide to go out and we post about it, and she's like, oh, thanks for not inviting me, and blah, blah, blah. And it just got to a point where it's just, like, don't take it so seriously. Like, we're not, like, you know, shutting you out. It's just, like, it was an us thing. And I get, like, you know, I do take some responsibility for that friendship, because obviously I didn't put my effort in, and also, like, making plans with her and, like, talking to her. But every single time she did have a problem, I was always there for her and, like, helping her out and, like, giving her advice and everything. But it's just, like, no hard feelings. I move on, you move on, you know. No one gets like, you know, nothing big happens or nothing, like, big drama happens. I'm okay.
So I think, like, one thing that Rachel mentioned was that, you know, they were both doing different things now. And in my case, for someone that live in like two other countries besides the U.S., I've created a lot of relationships in many places, and sometimes because of life situations, you start to become distant from those people, and it's not that you don't like them anymore. It's not like you're not their friends anymore. It's just like sometimes life situations, can get in the way of relationships and friendships, and that could make it harder. So I think one thing that we need to make sure whenever we start a relationship is that the relationship has a solid foundation. Because if the relationship doesn't have a solid foundation, it's not gonna last for a long time. And if the relationship has a solid foundation, doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter how distant you are from your friend, you're still gonna be his or her friend.
Friends for life. We've heard that passed around. I got a friend for life.
BFFs.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Because I can tell you, in my very brief life,
Super brief.
super brief,
Short.
yeah. Anyways, me personally, the friends that I had that I would have called BFFs, friends for life, 20 years ago, I maybe see them on social media. That's about it. That's the extent of it. I mean, how much do we invest into that foundation? Because I know we meet people and we're like, wow, I don't know if I can do life without you, and go through these situations and experiences without somebody like you. But I mean, why? Why does it just dissipate? Why does it just fade off? I mean, what happens? What is it? The foundation? Is it not a strong foundation? What? And if it's not any kind of bad experience or anything like that.
I'm thinking more of like it's a process through like our life. Like a person comes into our life, they teach us a lesson, and like maybe God has placed them there for a reason, and He wants to show us something new or let us experience something new through this friend, whether it be good or bad. So yeah, I feel like it's more like they come in like moments of life, because obviously you're not the same person you were when you're like in 5th grade, and like we're all older, we have more like adult things to worry about, and it's just like whether you meet new people who will help you out through each like time period of your life, each milestone in your life, I should say.
Yeah, I definitely think we should normalize the whole circumstances changing thing, because a lot of the times we don't like to recognize that life changes you and that you can change life as well. But I think that's such a huge thing of like society these days and being a Christian, and that's what happens. I mean, things are gonna change, and like you were saying about like building a strong foundation, and I'm speaking personally, obviously, but from being here in youth and growing up here, there are people that I met, and I built such a strong foundation in Christ, especially, that I haven't seen and talked to them for a year. I just got back from UF, and I saw them at VBS. I saw Matt Allred, and I saw Cam Rodriguez, and these are people I haven't seen in a year. And I saw them, and it was like I was immediately back to when we were hanging out here in the garage. And I think that's because we built such a strong foundation on Christ and knowing each other through Christ. And I think that's just how it stays. Like, I don't think that's a friendship that's going to fail so easily because of where we built it.
Wow. How important is Christ in somebody's life for you to be friends with them? I mean, are some of your friends not so interested in religion and God? I mean, do you know those people? Because me personally, I have a few friends that are proclaimed atheists, but I would trust them with my children, even though they don't have, their views on religion are completely different than mine, but I trust them, But in some aspects, I know that they wouldn't see things the same way as I do. But how important is that to you?
I don't think religion makes like someone a good person. So, we live in a world where we meet many different people from many different backgrounds. And you see that someone who grew up, poor or, abused, they could grow up and become someone better than you. And you realize that, what was the question again?
Well, is it important to you?
That's okay, yeah. So I was saying, like, coming up, like, even if they don't believe in God, that doesn't make them, any less inferior than me, I should say. Because just because I believe in God, you treat them with the same respect, they treat you with the same respect, and that way, you should have God as like a foundation in a relationship. But with a friendship, I don't think so much, just because, I believe friendships do come and go. But if there's just enough trust in that person and they're always there for you and you could depend on them, I don't think religion and like God should play into it. But I know it sounds like weird, but it's not like I don't mean it that way. But
I know what you mean. It's like the respect kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like you are aware of their beliefs or their non-beliefs, and as long as they're aware of mine,
and like they respect each other.
As long as there's a two-way street of respect for what I believe and what they may or may not believe, then I think that's the most important. As long as they're aware and they know, then I think whatever they choose to believe is their choice. And while it is like our mission to make better and more disciples of Christ, I think that if it's their choice and they've chosen their path, then I respect that. They made a choice, and I think that's the biggest thing like a person can do.
So going back to what Chris was saying, I do have friends who are not Christian, and you don't need to be a Christian to have morals. There's a lot of people who have morals and are not Christian, and I do have friends like that, but I also have a lot of friends who are Christian. And I think that, when you're a Christian, I think it's easier for you to start a relationship with someone who is Christian, who shares the same faith. But at the same time, for those friends who are not Christian and does not share the same faith, I think I'm not the type of person that believes that you should stop being their friend. I think you should continue being their friend, because the testimony of your life is like it could impact them at some point in their life. So I think that you shouldn't stop being friends with people who are not Christian. I think you should continue to be friends with them and support them and help them. And I believe that at some point they're going to realize that being a Christian is it's not what people what people says it is. Mm-hmm. And at one point they're going to they might come to Christ. And I've had friends like that, and friends like they never been to church and actually never invite them to church, but they see your life testimony and they see the way you live. And for that, they kind of it makes them come to church and, give their lives to Christ.
That's good. Rachel, you brought up something a minute ago about you having a friend that you started to date.
Yeah.
And then you kind of made that stop, and then you guys became platonic friends.
Yeah.
Really good friends.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe this is the Y chromosome talking, but I don't understand how that works, because when I was young,
Not too long ago,
I would get into a relationship with the girl, and there would be something there, a spark, whatever you want to call it, and you would get involved with them. But then all of a sudden it was like, we're better off friends, and you're thinking, well, maybe we are, but how can
she put you in the friend zone?
yeah.
How can that just be like not messy at some point?
That's just because it was like freshman year, and he was friends with the girlfriend groups that I had, so he already knew them, and I got to know him later on, and it was like he kind of like thought I was cute kind of thing, but I didn't really after everything went down, I took a year. I went like a whole year without speaking to none of them. And it was just like the moment he walked into the class and I realized we both had the same class, and it was just like, oh, like I remembered how we were before like everything went down. And it's just like we like talked, we opened up about it. And now we just joke about it. We just laugh about it all the time now. And it's just like.
But you're never concerned that there's that level of, well, there's something there or in our history that could maybe come back, or we shared that moment with each other.
There's no moment to share.
I've been in that situation, except I didn't only date them for a week. I dated them for like 8 months. So it was a little more of like a really, not that yours wasn't, but I was in it for longer. and he was one of my best friends. Like that situation was similar. I had known him since 6th grade, and I had been best friends with him for 3 years up until 9th grade when we started dating, and we dated for so long, and then eventually we both came to like the agreement, like this isn't it. Like this was good. We both can agree to that, but like this isn't what we were supposed to do. And it took probably about a year break too. We were all still in the same friend group, so I saw him at functions and everything like that, but I didn't go out of my way to talk to him or anything like that for a year and a half. It would have been a while. And like all of a sudden junior year, we started talking again, and I was like, wow, this is why I liked him. Like these are all these characteristics that I liked in the first place, but now I can appreciate in a different light. And I think that was like my turning point, was like everything that I liked about him in a romantic way, I like in him as a friend. And I think I just had to switch my perspective a little bit. And now he helped me get through freshman year of college, being away from home and talking to him and all those things. So like, I think I just had to switch it in my mind, and I think that helped me appreciate all of those qualities in a different light.
And he was good with that.
He was fine with it. Like the weirdest part was talking about other relationships with each other. Like that part was still it was still a little weird. But I mean, we got over it. We passed it. He talks to me about his girlfriend, who I like. I mean, she's one of our friends, and all of this stuff. So it was like a learning curve.
Right.
Like we just had to keep going through the friendship to get to that point where we were both comfortable. And I think it eventually happened, obviously, but it took a little effort. Like, I'm not gonna lie, but
I want to get a guy's perspective here. I'm still thinking, how can that happen? How can just two people do this and then all of a sudden do this and be okay with it? You know what I mean?
You know, I think sometimes we are like, when it comes to relationships, and especially when you want to have like a serious relationship with someone, I think we become like too emotional, and we get a lot into our feelings. I'm not saying this was the case with them both.
We're too emotional. It's okay.
You know, but yeah, like sometimes we put like our feelings, in front of our relationship, and I think that we need to be careful, because I've been in that situation. Like 10 years ago when I was in high school, I was, you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
When you're a teenager, you don't
what usually happens.
you don't really think a lot. You act a lot, but you don't really think a lot. You know what I'm saying?
True.
And I've been in that position before, and now that I'm older, I go back into those relationships and I see like what could have been done better. I think about it and I'm like, I could have done this better. But I think one of the main reasons is that we are too emotional sometimes, and we go to our relationship with our emotions, and we never think that what could happen in the future, like what things we have in common. And I think it's important that whenever we go into a relationship, to think that through, and to really like think about it and not be too emotional. I'm not saying emotions are bad or feelings are bad, but I think sometimes we really need to think about it,
Yeah.
Logic over emotion.
Learning
that?
experience.
Logic over emotion.
Yeah.
Logic over emotion. I know. I agree.
Says the married one.
How important? How important is it to find the right person? I mean, being young, assuming you have your whole life ahead of you, is it important to find the right person right now, or should you take each experience to build yourself into a better person for the right relationship? In other words, should you date the field, or should you go out and find the one?
That's a really good question.
Good question.
That's a hard question.
I think before getting into any relationship, especially if it's like a serious relationship, something you want long term, like you want to see yourself marrying this person, you have to focus on yourself first. I'm in a 3-year relationship right now. I don't see myself with anyone else but him, and it's just like there was a moment where I had to like step back and like think to myself. I had to like, I prayed to God and everything. I was like, should I keep going forward with this? Is this the person you want for me? And it's just like, you just need to, you know, I think the moment you love yourself and you put your faith into God, he would like lead you to the right person. And sure, yeah, you know, there's nothing wrong with like, you know, dating a person, you know, and you just, because you fall in love, like you're young, you know, you fall in love, it happens. And it's just like, maybe it's okay to get your heart broken just to help you build yourself into a better person. You know, you always hear the story like, you know, we were in this long-term relationship, we had like a kid together, and then you like get divorced, and it's just like, but it was for the better of me. Like I came out as a better person, I found myself like, you know, in Jesus, and it's just like, sometimes it's better to be heartbroken.
Yeah. And I mean, we all hear it, like everyone's like, oh yeah, it's all part of God's plan, and I think it is. Like I think whether you choose to wait until you think you've found that person, or if you want to go and date and try and find that person, I think either way, God has already planned this. Like he knows what you're going to do and whatever's best for you. And so I think if you want to go out there and try and search for that person, go ahead. I think that's fantastic. You should try and search for your person, because everyone deserves that person. But I don't really think there's like a better place. Like there's not a better option. I think whatever you want to do is what you should be doing, because I don't think you're going to be miserable if you do what you don't want to. You know what I mean? And so I think like, absolutely, I think you should work on yourself first. I think that's a huge part of it. And each relationship is a learning experience, because if you're not learning from it, then what was the point of it?
Right.
So I don't know. I think that's like a personal preference kind of thing. If that's like an answer, am I allowed to answer that? Yeah.
That's actually a really good question, Chris, because you know, we are in a church, like we're Christians, we believe in God, but there's a lot of Christians who have the thought that you shouldn't be in a lot of relationships, that you should like find the one and date for like a year, sometimes a couple of months, and then get married. Right. And personally for me, I do not agree with that at all. Because actually, I have a friend who he was he was 18 years old, and he got into this relationship, and the father of the girlfriend, he was a pastor, and he told him like, my daughter, you have to date her for a year, and then you guys need to get married. Jeez. And he got married when he was 18 years old. Jeez. And they're still married though. I hope things are going well, because he's one of my best friends. But I don't think that way. I kind of think that, you know, you need to go through some experiences. Yeah. You have to get to know my dad person. Actually tells me that. My dad, you know, I remember like my dad would tell me like, hey, don't be afraid of relationship. Don't be afraid of dating people. I'm not saying like go crazy, you know what I'm saying? But don't be afraid. Like just because you're dating someone, I have to be careful with what I'm saying, because they're watching, you know?
Yeah, they're all watching right now.
Someone is watching. No, but like before, like he would tell me like, don't be afraid of going, having a relationship with someone. Just because you have a relationship with someone doesn't mean that you need to get married, and you need to be with that person for the rest of your life. So don't be afraid. You just get some experiences, and you know, see which one is the right one for you.
True.
That's a good answer, and I'm glad you brought up that perspective from at least the church. You know, not every church, and you know, it's just people in the church that I think feel this way and kind of speak out about it. But I watched my sister kind of go through that motion, where she got married at 18 because that was the one, and they wanted to have a relationship and a marriage, and guess what? It didn't work out. You know, so I think it's just a maturity factor. You have to be mature enough, not just in your own self, but you have to be mature enough to handle a relationship, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with that person.
And I also think that, you know, if you're lucky, if you find the one at 18 years old, if you find the right person to spend the rest of your life with at 18 years old, that's awesome. But at the same time, I think that you're not at 18 years old, you're not mature enough to get married. I think for you to be able to get married, you need to like going outside of the church, you need to be economically stable, and you need there's some of the factors that you need to have, and some of the things that play into like a marriage besides finding the right person.
I mean, of course, like no like bad blood onto anyone who does like get married at 18. Like that's all your choice. Absolutely. But I always think you just have to know what you're doing, and I think as long as you're aware of what's going to happen, like then why not make that decision? it's up to you, and you're doing what you should be doing. I think that's great. Just personally, I would never do it. But it's fine.
So let me ask you this.
Oh, no.
A lot of people look at marriage, considering what we believe as Christians, and I think that there's a lot of pressure when you get married, that this is the marriage. This is the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. A lot of people have divorce in their back pocket. Like, well, if this doesn't work out,
Like a safety plan. Yeah.
I can always get divorced. It's like an option where I think a lot of people, I see success in a lot of the marriages where they're like, divorce is not an option. We're going to work this out no matter what.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. To what extreme do you say that's not going to work? We need to separate. We need to be done. I mean, obviously, if you become in an abusive relationship, obviously, if the person is out of control with some sort of, I don't know, problem of extramarital or whatever. But if you just decide to grow apart, where all of a sudden your husband or wife is in the friend zone, what do you do then?
I think if you both are still willing to work at it, I think it can be saved. I think if it's something that you can agree on and we say, look, this is what needs to happen, we just both have to actually commit to it and do this. I think if it's something that is so far gone that one of you just cannot see it happening, you just like, this is impossible, this is not the point I want to be at, then I think you need to have that talk first. Because I think any decision where you don't talk about it first is irrational. Because I think you're not getting outside perspective. And we all brew a lot in our own minds, like think about like worst case scenario and what could happen. And I think that's dangerous in a relationship. So I think we always say communication is key in all relationships. So I think if you're thinking about that being the end all be all, you just need to say it and see what that person said. Like calmly, of course, not yell at them, say we're over, like this is it, divorce, like that's just not going to help anybody. But if you have that conversation, say this is what I'm thinking, what do you think we can do about this to like change the direction? And then if it's not and there's no agreeing, then I think you use the nuclear option. You go to that place because no one wants to be unhappy in their life.
Right.
So
going back to the whole, dating when you're getting married, I think that's mainly the reason why there's so many like divorces going on, especially like young ages, like, at 21 after getting married at 18. And it's just because you're with this person for 1 year. You haven't really got to know that person. And then the moment you start living with each other, you start seeing like, oh, they have all these flaws. And now I'm not sure how I feel about this person. And obviously, you could fix it. You could talk to like, oh, you never like take the trash out. You never help me out with anything. You just, play your video games and do nothing. And obviously, like, you could talk to that person and, communicate and explain like how you feel and how you would feel if they start helping you out and doing all this stuff. And also the fact is like, once you get married, you're expected to have a kid after.
yeah.
And then it's like you bring a kid into a relationship. And it's just like, I think, obviously in the first like couple years, it's a newborn, like, you're taking care of this little thing. And it's quite difficult. I mean, you're a father, right?
I am.
There's like, moment, like you go months without not being able to like sleep and like, being with each other and having like going out on date and being intimate. And it's just like, people start to grow. But, it always comes back to, at the end of the day, you guys are both in the same bed together. You're able to speak and talk and express what's going on. So if everyone puts in the right effort, it could be saved. But obviously, at one point, if that person isn't trying anymore and you've tried everything, you've given it all you got and nothing has happened, then maybe it's time for you to step away.
Well, I want to do a lot of things in regards to that. So, I mean, in regards to your question, to the main question, first, I've been to a lot of weddings. My dad has done a lot of weddings, and one thing that he says is that if you're gonna get married, like divorce is not a plan B. When you're gonna get married, there's no plan B. And you know what I'm saying? So, I think personally, for you to get divorced, the two main things should be, if someone is unfaithful or abusive. if none of those things are going on in the relationship, I don't think you should get divorced. Because some people say that, oh, I want to get divorced because the flame is not there. We don't have, the same. I don't feel attractive to her or to him as I was before. Well, why you got married in the first place? So I think, that's one thing that, Rachel was saying, that, instead of like dating or seeing each other for 1 year, I think we should put more time into relationship before getting married and before making that decision. And another thing that I want to say is that we live in a society, and we also, we go to churches, and a lot of people put like a lot of pressure into the youth of the church. Like, I don't know if that happened in your church, but in our side, a lot of like elders, like they talk to you like, hey, when are you getting married? When are you having kids? When are you doing this? And like, calm down. You know what I'm saying? Like, calm down. And I think sometimes we make the decision to get married, and we make the decision to have a kid, not because we really want it, but because we feel pressure by other people. Sometimes by our own parents. They tell us, hey, I wanna have a grandson, but they're not gonna raise them. But you're the one.
We're the ones
You're the ones who's gonna raise them. You know what I'm saying? So that's another thing. Like our society, and many times our church puts a lot of pressure into the youth and into the young people who have relationships. And they always asking you, oh, when are you getting married? When is the wedding? And sometimes you have to let them have a relationship. And if it's 3-5 years, 7 years, it's fine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I hope I never put pressure on youth ministry, because I, you know what, and I make it a point not to bring up all that in youth ministry, just because
that's good.
It's not even. I don't even think you should.
I mean, he has before. He just tries not to. Sure.
But I just really don't think it's important right now. It's not what they should be focused on, because they should be focusing on learning how to build the relationships right now, and a relationship with God as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think people are going to be people no matter where you go. But you bring up a good point about parents and elders and stuff like that.
True.
Now, if I were to ask each one of you, looking at who's around you in your life, what is like a model relationship that you could say, wow, I hope one day I have a marriage like that or a relationship like that?
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to say their names.
Ladies first.
Please don't say their names.
Ladies
but
first.
I mean, if it's somebody close to you, or if it's good friends, or your parents, or your grandparents.
I'm going to go with my parents, because they've been together for 26 years now in August. And, my dad in the beginning, when I was growing up, he was a truck driver. So he was gone for like the majority of the time. Obviously because he had to work and, be able to support us. And, I saw as a kid, like growing up, I saw like the effort he would put into this family, and how my mom would like respect him, and how he respects her, and how my mom would take care of us to make sure like, we're all well. I've seen like all their hardships. I see moments like, my dad cry, my mom cry. And it's like, I personally never get involved into their arguments, just because I know it's a them thing. I have no say in their arguments. I'm not going to like bias them, and like, I'm not going to like take one side over the other. So it's always just like, I've seen it, and I've seen the way they take a moment and like calm down, let go of all the anger, and how they come back together and they talk about it and they work through their problems. And I know obviously like a couple weeks after, you get into a huge argument, you're not gonna be like perfect, but it's like you see the way like the love has taken over again, like the anger has disappeared and love has come in. So yeah.
True.
You want me to go first? Okay, I'll go. So
She's still thinking.
okay, that's good. So, in my family, thank God, I have a lot of examples. My parents, obviously, but I would put the examples of both of my grandparents. My grandparents on my dad's side, they've been married for more than 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're still together until this day. And now that I have them at home, I mean, they eat dinner together. They do everything together. And for me, it's I admire them, because I don't know, 50 years together with someone is hard, And in the other side of my family, my grandmother, like she, it was a different story because my grandparents on my dad's side, they were Christian, they were pastors. My other grandparents, one of them, my grandfather, he was an alcoholic for many years, and he never went to church, even though he accepted Christ before he died, and all of that. My grandma, she always went to church, and she always made sure that my mom would go to church with her and stuff like that. And even though he was an alcoholic and there was a lot of issues involved, she never gave up, and she stood with her until he passed away. And like I was telling Rachel, he had like lung cancer, and she stood with him until the last minute. Wow. And she divorce was never something that that came to her. Like she stood with him. She would pray for him that one day he would change. And yeah, one day he stopped drinking, even though he continued to smoke a lot. That's probably why he got lung cancer. But she was always on his side. And yeah, I think both of my grandparents' relationship are very admirable.
Yeah. Is it my turn?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I would probably say I was really young when my great grandparents died from my dad's side, but I knew them for as long as I did, and I'm really proud that I knew them at all. But they were this old, frail, tiny little Minnesotan couple, had accents, and they were so funny, but they loved each other so much. Like every time we were up there in Minnesota, or they came down here to visit us, it was just evident how much they loved each other. Like my great grandpa used to walk around my great grandma, and he used to compliment her even in their 90s. Like he was so proud of this woman next to him. And when she passed a long time ago, I remember we visited him the following few years, and we went up to Minnesota. It was so cold, but he had a little picture frame of him and her when they were super, super young. And every night before bed, he told us he would just go and visit it and just say goodnight or say I love you or say something like that. And so even after all of that life that they had lived, he was still with her, and she was definitely with him. I mean, you saw it every time he was together, and unfortunately he passed, but like just the knowledge that they were together even when my grandma wasn't on earth, like that was just like, that's a love, like that is the love right there. And so I just like, that was just so surreal to like watch. And even when my grandma was gone, it was nice to see. So,
and each one of these relationships that you each brought up, that is something that maybe you would like to have influence in your own relationships?
Well, if my man doesn't miss me when I'm gone, then I'm going to be mad. I'm just saying.
He doesn't kiss my picture goodnight.
I should have a picture.
I'm coming back and haunting him.
So it's and I kind of knew you guys were going to pick somebody in your families. I'm not a magic person, but I just
Psychic.
I just kind of was thinking, we usually go to that family example, and I think it's because there's somebody in our family that just seems to know what they're doing. However,
At least at some point.
yes.
True.
However, we come to the next part of our segment here.
Oh, goodness.
Relationships with family. Sometimes those relationships can be very, very complex. They can be I don't know. I know there's certain people in my family, as soon as they walk into a family gathering, I'm walking right out. I know that's really, me and God were working on that. But the thing is, it's just, like you said, 50 years in a marriage, sometimes, to take each other for 50 years, and with somebody in your own family, you can't take more than like 5 hours with them.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're blood. Why is it so like complex with our own family?
Families are hard because you grow up together, and a lot of those traits are inherited or learned or stuff like that. So I think each family has a degree of likeness with each other. So like, in my eyes, me and my cousin Ben could not be any more different. You know him. Mm-hmm. We are complete opposites, but there are always times when we're thinking the same thing, or we're going to do the same thing, or something like that. And so I think because we can be so alike, there are times when we just cannot like stand each other. Like, you're being too much like I would be right now. I can't handle it. I'm going to walk out of the room and stuff like that. Like, that's, family's difficult, and people are more prideful these days than they used to be. Like, I was talking to you earlier about it. Pride is a downfall. It's, even in your families, it's a thing. You don't want your family to see you as less than you are, because you want them to be proud of you. Like, that's the natural thing. I want my parents, and I want my grandparents, and my aunts and uncles, and my cousins, and my brother and sister to be proud of me. But when it comes to, like, me being weak in front of them, like, oh, nope, never mind. I can't do that. That's not going to happen. You will not see that side of me. So, like, that to me is just a hard thing to, like, navigate with families. So,
I was going to add more to what you said. The whole, you know, you grew up, like, the way you get your personality and, like, the attitude and everything from your parents, from your, like, siblings, whatever you see. It's like what you grow up is what you see. It's like what you learned. And it's like a little bit that you probably see yourself. You see the flaws in yourself and them that you have for yourself and them. And it's just like that kind of like self-hatred you have for yourself. Like,
that's a good point.
Oh, like I act like that sometimes, and you see how they act, and it's just like, why? And it's just like, it just makes things like, I guess, more difficult for like a family to get along, just because I feel like you see a little bit more of yourself in there, and then you like reflect on yourself and you're like, I don't like that. And it's just like creates more conflict as it grows.
Yeah.
So for me, I love my family members. I love, they're great. But
Shout out
for
to them.
David, you have a large
Is it because
fan base
it's
watching.
because they're watching?
Yeah,
You're saying that because they're watching.
so
Diplomatic.
So for me, like, there's two things. The first one is that sometimes when because they're family, we feel obligated to like them or to love them because they're like our blood. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes that love is more than earned. It's like given, like, or forced. Sometimes we feel like we feel like we're being forced to like them or to love them because they are our own family, and it shouldn't be like that. You know what I'm saying? Even though they're family, they should be able to earn you respect, and they should be able to be likable. And just like a friend, you guys should be able to, whenever you have an issue, you should be able to talk to them and resolve that issue. And another factor is that there's a lot of competition in between families, among families, and we even see that in movies.
Yeah.
There's this movie that I really like with Steve Harvey. I don't know, like there's like a road trip. There's this family in this road trip, and then I don't know, but there's a lot of movies about like competition in between families, and sometimes we see our cousins that they are accomplishing this stuff, and they have like this business, and they doing well in life, and sometimes we don't like them, or we feel like we're less than them because we're not doing as well as they are doing. And that's another thing. Like, there's a lot of competitions in between families. There's a lot of rivalries, and sometimes those things, they cause a lot of issues in families. And when it shouldn't be like that. It should be the opposite. It should be like, if you're doing well, you should be able to help your cousins, or you should be able to help your siblings, your brother, your sister. But most of the time, it's not like that. Most of the time, you want to show off. Most of the time, you want to like make them see how well you're doing, and that's not good for a family.
True.
Pride and envy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pride and envy. All the way. I mean, even in my own situation, my own family, it's all about pride and envy. That's it, bottom line. But what happens is you start to get frustrated with that person, or they get frustrated with you, and it just grows and grows and grows, and it's like a big tumor in the middle of the room,
Mm-hmm.
And why? In fact, it always seems to come up in holidays too, doesn't it? Am I wrong? Like Thanksgiving, Christmas, that's when it all just comes to the surface.
Yeah.
I don't know. Any other time of the year? No.
Designated family time really brings it up.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know, but in the Hispanic families, like every time there's like a Thanksgiving dinner, you have like 5 uncles asking you why you're still single. And like, yeah, you have like 4 aunties. Like they all ask you like, yeah, why you still single? I mean, you're like 27 years old. Why you still single? Like you're doing something wrong. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's the same case with you guys.
Lord. I mean, I don't have 6 uncles asking it. I have 2, but I mean, they definitely ask. Not Uncle Michael. Uncle Michael doesn't ask.
In all the relationships we've talked about, is there a relationship that is specifically meaningful to you that isn't like a family member or a romantic relationship? And maybe it's not a level of friendship, but it's more like, I don't know what you would call it, like just a friend?
Acquaintance?
Or a what?
Acquaintance?
Acquaintance, or just somebody in your life where you know you have that special bond with them. They're not somebody that's going to be your BFF, but they're just somebody that you know you could trust in a certain way, or maybe look to them for mentorship, or just some sort of, there's a value there that you don't get anywhere else. Do you have anybody in your lives like that?
I think I do. And it's more of like a mentor, like what you were talking about. Like these 2 people, I've grown up with them. I met them when I was 12 or 13, and I went on mission trips with them, and they became my small group leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Like Scott and Christy Allred have changed my perspective on the church and Christ in my life and everything like that. Like they were the people that I went to when I wasn't sure or I was scared. They gave me advice and they taught me lessons. And even when we weren't doing the actual lesson in church, because you knew we didn't do that a lot, we were always learning something with them. And I think, and I know I may not have talked to them all year, or I may not see them for another 5, but I know that if I text them or call them, Scott and Christy will answer. Mm-hmm. And they will give me whatever advice that I need. Even if it's not what I want to hear, I know that they're there. They will listen.
Right.
Like they're willing and able. And I know that like that's not going to change no matter how old I get or how old they get. Like that's not going to shift. They were with me when I was 12, when I first went to the Dominican, and they were with me when I graduated, and they were with me when I was in here falling asleep, because I did that sometimes. They were with me when I wasn't perfect, and I think that mentor mentality helped me more than I gave them credit for. So I think they're that special relationship that I don't think is ever really going to change, for me at least.
Right.
You first.
To be honest, I don't have anyone outside of my family that I really consider a mentor. To be honest, the people that I really consider a mentor are like family members, and it's not because it's not because of lack of trust, but it's more like I feel like whenever I have a situation, like a personal situation, I feel more comfortable talking to someone within my family than someone outside of my family. And I do have like really good friends and very close friends that I know I can count on them and they can be my mentor. But I don't know, whenever I have like whenever I'm struggling with something, I always try to go to someone in my family, especially my parents. So yeah.
Come on, Rachel, you got it.
I guess it just depends on what mentoring I need. Because obviously I'm like David, I feel more comfortable going someone in my family just because I feel like there's no judgment there compared to like me going to like someone else. But obviously I do have my pastors I could depend on to helping me out, giving me advice for everything I need. I have my youth leader right here to help me out and give me advice, and mentorship. But it's just like, no one really comes off the top of my head. It's just kind of like, I'm kind of like I kind of keep everything to myself sometimes, and I kind of just work it out by myself. So it's just like, I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe I gotta work on that.
Well, no, it's and sometimes I think, especially with what you said, Becca, Scott and Christy it was one of those just perfect accidents. It was just they showed up because they were there at that time. Yeah. And that's what happens a lot of times.
Because Matt was in our group. That's what ended up happening.
People just show up at a certain time, and then the next thing you know, they're sort of that beacon. and you're following them and going to the light, and they're just showing you the way, and it's like, wow, I never asked for this, but it's here it is, you know. And some of those relationships are just incredible because they talk about lifelong relationships. Those are the ones that you're going to have, and it might not have come to you yet, but it will.
Yeah.
It's not even an if, it's going to come. It just when will it happen? We don't know. It's only in God's plan.
Well, I
you know?
mean, even you, Chris, like you were an accident. You were never supposed to be this. Like this wasn't supposed to
Apparently
be.
I was.
Well, you know what I meant. Like you had never planned to be this. This wasn't your end game.
Right.
And so, and after D and everything, like my uncle and then D and everyone that came, like I don't know if you know it, but you changed this youth program more than people give you credit for.
Thank you.
Well, and that's what I say. Like you were in a happy accident here that got me and my grade and the grades above me and a few grades below me. Like we were here on Sundays because of you. Like we came because you were leading our youth, and so
Thank you.
you were a happy accident, Chris.
Thank you. Well, it was my pleasure and my privilege, actually. But yeah, I feel like God, he is just doing so much in our lives with people, and sometimes we just kind of tend to look past it a little bit, you know, but they're there, and maybe at some point we'll realize, you know, wow, that person is really important in my life. They're not my best friend. They're not in my group of friends. They're not somebody I want to be romantically involved with, but they are there for a reason, you know. We got to wrap things up, but I want to kind of close in asking you all: is there something like let's look at both dimensions here? Is there something in relationships that you would like to see in your life? Like, is there something lacking in your life that you know it's got to do with relationships, and where is it? And is there a relationship in your life where you know you are at the perfect place right now?
Those are hard
Whoever's ready to answer. Are these tough questions?
Yeah, the first one was like the second one. I feel like I could answer, but the first one was hard.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, I will tell you mine. Let me just. I will use up some time
You go
here.
first, Chris.
You haven't said
The
anything.
one where I think
know.
I have a void in my life is that I think I mentioned earlier where a lot of my friends that I was really close with and grew up with and whatever, I'm 20 years gone from them. And maybe this is one of the things when you get married, you start to lose friends too, especially your close friends and whatever, because you're in that marriage or whatever. But I don't have that sort of best friend, I guess you would call it, or
Person.
that person
Yeah.
in my life where you know, where I used to be, you know, hey, let's go to a game. Oh yeah, right on, you know, or let's go play ball or whatever, or let's go to a show. I don't have that now.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is a void that I wish was there for me in a relationship. I wish I had that relationship with somebody or a friend or whatever. And then the opposite of that is, I think the perfect thing that I have is, of course, my marriage. You know, I think you know, she is just amazing.
We
We've
love
been married
her.
for going on 17 years now, and she puts up with me, which is hard to do.
Difficult times.
Right, it's a full-time job. But I just think, you know, for the perfect relationship that I have, there's one over here that there's a void in.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
I'm still thinking.
Okay, I
still
might
thinking.
I might have an answer. I'm not fully confident in it, but I think I have one.
Okay.
So I think for my void, I think after the pandemic and being in school, everything like that, my main void, despite me being here right now, is probably my faith. Not that it's gone. I still believe in God, guys. I'm not that far gone. But I just Gator Wesley was shut down, and I couldn't be in the church. I could sit with a small group and I could sit outside, and I did that and I loved it, but not being in the church for so long took its toll on my faith. It was hard. It's not been easy trying to get back to where I was. Being at VBS helped and everything like that, but not having that constant connection really took its blow to my faith and everything like that. So I think right now that's my void, and I need to work on getting that back to where it is. And I realize that. I'm working on it, guys. It'll get there eventually. I just got to build it back up again. But I think that's the relationship that I think is struggling the most right now, the one with Christ. But I think the relationship that I have in a perfect place right now would probably be my best friend Holly. You remember Holly, my favorite redhead? Yeah. She and I went to different schools. She went to Florida Gulf Coast, and I went to UF, and those are each 2 hours in opposite directions from Tampa. So we are 4 hours apart for the majority of the year, and it was hard. And we struggled a lot of our first year, but I FaceTimed her, and I went to visit her, and she went to visit me, and I think it was hard adjusting, but now we're talking every day again. We're sending each other TikToks, or we're sending each other memes. I mean, it's those things that just like remind me of where we were. And though our relationship has changed and it's slightly different, it's still that core like value of like, wow, this is my person. This is who I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. Like, I know this is who my best friend is meant to be. And so that's my girl Holly. So I think that's my answer.
Awesome. No, it was a great answer.
Thanks.
Rachel, David? David?
I'll go.
Someone's gotta go. You gotta go.
So, so when it comes to like the void, the thing that is missing, I think I would I would go with the same thing that she was saying. Like, because of the pandemic and many other things, we got too comfortable sitting at home and watching the service at home and stuff like that. And right now that everything is coming back, we're starting to realize, that we have that void, that our relationship with God was not as good as it was like 2 or 3 years ago, because we got into a stage of our life that we felt very comfortable, and we felt like we didn't need to go to church anymore and stuff like that. And I think that's a void that is kind of, I think not only myself, but I think a lot of people are kind of like restoring, and then they're kind of filling that void right now after like being like 2 years with, practically the church closed. Mm-hmm. And, when it comes to the other part, I think, in the pandemic as well, because I had to start working from home, it also helped me to build a stronger relationship with my family and my girlfriend. Because, sometimes when you go to work, you leave early in the morning, and then you come back around 5 or 6 o'clock, and then you have a lot of stuff to do. You go play basketball, you go work out, and you barely talk to your family for the entire day. And working at home, I'll be there the whole day. Whenever I had lunch, I would go to the kitchen, you know what I'm saying? And I would see them every day. And that kind of like helped to build like a better relationship with my family. Not that I had a bad one before, but it made us stronger. Mm-hmm. And I would say that helped in a lot of ways.
Good answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, after hearing everyone, I'm going to have to kind of go on as well. I guess my void is kind of with my church itself. As many of you know, or you don't know, that I sing at my church. Ooh, I sing up there. Really? And I started off when I was like in 8th grade. I used to always like enjoy it. I'd be like, yes, I'm gonna go practice, and I'm excited. I'm gonna go up there. I'm gonna do my thing, even though you never hear me. But and now it's just like, now it just kind of feels like a job for me. It's not something like, I enjoy anymore. It's just kind of like, great, I got to go do that. I got to add that. And I guess it's more kind of like, it's like just because of school right now, and like there's so much going on, and it's just like, I think about it, it's like, okay, Tuesdays, I have to do this, this, and this. I have to study for this. But wait, I got to make sure I have time from 6 to 7 to be able to go to practice. Same thing as like on Sundays, it's like I wake up and it's just like, okay, I know I'm going to be at church from this and this. I know I'm going to go out to eat with my family, and then I know I have this much time to like either relax and like study and get like, everything I need to do. So it's kind of just like, it's not like an enjoyment for me anymore. It's not like I sit there and it's just not like, okay, I'm ready to learn. Like I'm ready to, have the word of God enter and stuff. But on the other hand, bright side, I would say, a relationship that's like really strong that, I guess kind of helps fill the void is, I have to agree, like, my family. I feel like I've grown stronger, like, with just, like, my brothers and my parents. I'm able to, like, speak to them and, like, feel like we're respected enough in the family. and, you know, just joke around, even though we have like our moments where we get like mad at each other and like, you know, but
We all do.
it's just like, you know, I feel like I could actually like go to them with my problems and like speak to them and enjoy their company.
It was interesting to hear all of your all's responses, because something that I noticed was that where it was lacking was in sort of that spiritual part, or it was like a redundancy to the point where it was like just a job. And it reminded me that I think what we've been talking about here tonight, with relationships with friends, with relationships with romantic interests, with relationships with family, they all take work, don't they? And through experiences, we try to get better at them. We try to get more loyal with them or receive loyalty from them. But it's about trusting them and making it better all the time to get through life, right? It's the same thing with God, isn't it? You know, we still have to work at it. We still have to give our loyalty, give our trust, and know that it's always going to take work to get to carry that and build that foundation and then carry that with us, you know? So, yeah. Great conversation.
Oh yeah.
I really enjoyed this. I want to thank you all for being here and being a part of the Blended podcast for this month. It was a great time.
I had a great
And
time.
I appreciate you all just stepping in and doing this. One thing I want to remind you all is July 16th. I
How
got
to
it.
pull that from the depths of your
I know.
mind.
I'm like reaching back there. Friday, July 16th, we will have our next blended worship service, and we will have. I think we're doing it on the lawn this time, or are we going back into Logan Hall this time?
Depends on the
So
weather.
yeah, it depends on the weather.
Depends on the
Because
weather. Yeah.
you know, it's right now like it's raining every afternoon. So
True.
yeah, it depends.
Yeah. Either way, it's great. We have a great time. We get together. We have some worship time. Great
Party.
message. We play some games, and it's going to be awesome. And then also July 30th is our last summer night blended worship time, and that is going to be fun because we're going to have just a all-out type of water games and stuff like that. So if you are in youth, Hispanic youth, PSM, young adults, college, it's all for you. It's a great time. It's a wide variety of people. Both just Hispanic and Passion students and young adults are all together, and it's just a great time. So if you all can make it out there, then that's great. But I want to thank Becca, Rachel, David. You all did great tonight. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
Thank
your
you.
perspective, and have a wonderful rest of the summer.